Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Creator Talk. It's been a little bit hectic for me this week, and it might be again next week as well. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to drop the regular videos at the regular time. We'll see how it goes when we get there, honestly. Today we're going to be talking with Luke Stone at FundMyComics, Iron Age Distribution, someone who has at least his, I would say his entire leg now in the business of publishing comics, but not quite publishing, but getting comics published might be a better way of saying it.
Yeah, that'd probably be a good way to say it.
Mm-hmm. And let's take it away here. Before we start, is there anything you want to plug or anything you want to talk about that you're actively promoting right now?
Yeah, we are actively promoting the Out of Obscurity campaign that we have over on FundMyComic. So I am a part of Arrow Comics, which is a publishing house, I guess, publishing group. We consider it more of a co-op, but Arrow Comics has been around since the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, and so we've kind of been working with that. Now I started working with Arrow in 2021, I think officially, and then we've just been doing a lot with them, and I've kind of been helping out with the more digital side of things and marketing and things like that. Mm-hmm. So what we did here with Out of Obscurity is we actually took public domain characters, which were, some of them are rather obscure, mm-hmm. Which most public domain characters are. And then we took creators who hadn't published much or didn't have anything published at the time, and we worked with them, having them go through the whole editorial process that we would normally go with, that we normally go through in this industry. Mm-hmm. Kind of teaching them along the way and helping them craft these really great stories. So all the stories are 6 to 8 pages. Some of them tried to sneak in 10 pages, mm-hmm. and we weren't too mad about it. But the point was we wanted them to write a complete cohesive story in 6 to 8 pages. So basically they had 2 pages for each act, first, second, third act. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the challenge. And so we did that. I apologize about that. It's a busy day here at the Stone House, Casa del Stone. And they were, we worked on how to craft the story and not, put in all the fat and stuff that people often do. Writers have a tendency to get real wordy and add stuff that isn't super pertinent to the story sometimes. I think it's because we like to wax poetic in many cases. But so we worked on kind of cutting that down just to tell a cohesive story, and it worked out. We had quite a good time doing that, and so this is the product of that. So you get several stories from emerging talent here within the Iron Age, and we're pretty excited about it actually. And it is funded. It's nearly ready for print. Mm-hmm. Just a few more things to do, and then we'll have that thing ready to go. But we're running a few more days on that. So if people wanted to get on board with it, they could. And so that's really kind of what I'm pushing right now.
Well, there's this one here by Wayne Desper here that I did a review already on Mythicals issue 1, which he's funded on FundMyComic. And that's one I'm kind of expecting to read and kind of expectant to read, I would say. It seems Tarzan's always been a fun character to read, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it's a very good story, actually. He did a great job. In fact, all of them did a great job. I mean, none of them are bad. So when I first started the project, I wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself into. It was really one of those things where we were, I think we've all been in those kind of private group chats, and there's a little bit of drama that goes on in some of those. And we had somebody, how they say spurg out, and freak out, and wound up leaving the group. And I questioned why we were even there to begin with. I mean, there was a lot of smart people, talented people in that group. And I said, is this just a yes man group? Was this just to kind of bolster the ego of that individual? Because basically when someone gave him honest feedback that he didn't like, that's when he spurred out. So, and how those things happen, people just start hashing up things and complaining. I said, there's a lot of talent here. Instead of do that, why don't we do something special? Let's make like an anthology or something. And everyone was on board. And I said, I've had this idea of doing these little short stories of public domain characters and see what we can do with them. Breathe fresh life into them. And, well, everyone was on board with that. And so we started taking in submissions and, like I said, I didn't know what I was going to get into until I read the first script. And the first script was Super Old Guy. And it was funny. And there was very little work that needed to be done to it. And so I was pretty excited about that. And then I got in Hojos and then Bunnies, and everybody started rolling in. And I'm like, these are actually really good stories, really well crafted. And so, we went through the editorial stuff, made suggestions and what needed to happen. We helped them understand how to find their own creative teams and put them together and get to the point where we could publish, proudly a piece of comic book literature,
On my end, I backed on the digital tier for this one. Like many things, shipping to Canada is rather difficult. Well, not difficult. It just gets expensive.
It's
especially
very
with the
expensive.
exchange range. The exchange rate is actually also getting me here. I recently backed something on Kickstarter and the money just take out, and I was like, "Whoa, that's higher than I expected." And I just looked, and no, it makes sense with the exchange rate and the shipping.
Yeah, I heard somewhere on the internet they said the economy is doing great, that we're not in a recession, and I'm calling shenanigans on that. The economy sucks right now, and I mean we're seeing that across the board, and it hits hard. I think the independent creators, these self-publishers, it hits them the hardest, I think. Because this is expensive. It's not easy to do this.
No, it's an endeavor to get books into people's hands more than anything else.
Yeah.
Doing it strictly digital, it's not as fun, I would say, but at least it's probably not as expensive. At least you don't have the whole printing process behind it. So in some cases, that might be where some people need to go to grow, I think, at this point. What do you think about that?
I think I agree with that. Really, I think that the biggest challenge with being an independent creator of any kind, most of us work a full-time job. And I say us because I used to be that guy. Now I'm full-time in this. This is all I do, is art and comic books and stuff. But it's difficult to balance moving from a hobby to a business, I think. And, it's one thing to pay for a table at a convention and break even. It's another, or run a campaign and break even. It's another to turn a profit so that you can invest in future properties and hopefully eventually invest in paying your bills so that you can do it as a viable business. That growth can be very challenging, I think. And I think a lot of it comes down to marketing. I think we don't know how to market what we've got. Most people that will teach marketing actually teach you to do this kind of in reverse. They say, look at what people are buying and then make that. I think that's what I was able to do as far as my offering to the comic book industry for independence. I saw that there was a serious lack of sequential artists. So I focused on that and made that my growth. So that's my day job. That's what pays the bills for me. Then, when we started FundMyComic, it was look what are the needs. And I knew I had certain needs for myself, and I intended, I'm sure we'll get into it, but I had intended just to build this for myself and no one else. But then we started seeing other needs in the industry, and so we found a way to meet those. Same way with Iron Age distribution, it's see a need and fill the gap, right? But normally when we create a comic book, we do the opposite of that. We make what is important to us, and we don't do any market research whatsoever. And then we try to find an audience for that. And many times we think, okay, we're going to put it on a crowdfunding platform and people are going to see it. They're going to fall in love with it the same way that I did, and we're going to grow. We're going to sell copies. That doesn't normally happen. That's it takes years to become an overnight success. And so, I like I said, I kind of agree with you, because you have to find a good place to start that growth somewhere. You have to learn some skills.
It is a thing that was that is being said by a script doctor who's on Midnight's Edge very often. It says that marketers nowadays don't know how to market, because all they do is what you're saying here. Go in with saying like, well, this is what sells, do the same thing, or I've got something that sells, do something based on it.
Yeah, true marketing is. I think there's an audience for everything. I really do. I think no matter what you're making, however niche it might be, there is an audience for you somewhere. I think of it like dating. I use this analogy a lot. When you are courting, you're wanting to find that special someone and settle down. You have to think of your customers like that, your readers. It's a long-term relationship. It's not a one-night stand. Now, if you're producing crap, it's going to be a one-night stand, right? But if you're producing anything that's worth value, you want people to come back. It's not snake oil. This is a legit thing that you're doing. Too many people their marketing approach is the equivalency of running into the club and just asking every person in there if they want to hook up, like the Night at the Roxbury guys, you, me kind of guys. It just doesn't work. That's not how this thing goes down. Yeah, so I really use the courting analogy. If you want to settle down, you decide what kind of person you want to settle down with, right? And then you figure out where those people hang out. And then you go and you try to strike a conversation with the people that are like the ones that you want to settle down with. And if they engage with you, you have back and forth discourse. And eventually you then start asking them on a date. And then you go further and further and further into that relationship. Marketing can be summarized in somewhat the same way. Think about your product and think about what kind of customer it is that you want buying your book, and who it is that product might appeal with. So it will take you doing some surveys, and giving out some free copies, and but be smart about it. Don't just give out random free copies. Find someone from different demographics and get their opinion on it and see if they like it. What I'm running into with my book, I'm realizing that I don't have a single demographic that likes my book. So it's a little harder for me to market it. So I have to do more blanket marketing now than what I used to. But I do know that when it comes to my YouTube presence And when it comes to my my other work, like what I do here, that my biggest influence is with generally, not always, but generally men from the ages of 35 to 64 who are somewhat libertarian to right-leaning, usually people of faith or strong moral value, whether they have faith or not, strong moral value. So I've learned that that's typically, and they're usually creatives. They somewhat want to also produce something. That tends to be a demographic that gravitates towards my content. So if I'm going to market something that I know that I produce, then my goal is to find out where those kind of people are hanging out. Are they on Twitter? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Twitch? Where do they go? What kind of groups do they hang out in? What private messages do they go to? What conventions do those people go to? Like the convention that I went to this last weekend was not typically my demographic. It was very anime heavy. When I saw the marketing for it, I knew I had bought the table a year in advance. When I saw the marketing for it, I knew that this was not going to be my crowd. It was very occult heavy too. There was a lot of, they had Voltaire playing there. They had tarot card reading, stuff like that. Not typically my customer base. And the sales proved that was not my customer base. But I did find that I had a couple demographics that I didn't expect in there.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
And I do find it weird because those kinds of demographics, I mean, having read hybrids, I mean, it is a little heavy-handed on the Christian imagery. I'm not a Christian personally, but I respect the faith and such. I would like to think I'm a strong moral values overall through my own faith.
Yeah.
But, I mean, a lot of those people in the, like you said, maybe a bit of the occult crowd would enjoy that kind of story if
some
they
of them
gave it
did
a chance. Really.
Yeah, some of them did. They liked it. I use, because I know, you write what you know sometimes. I use the Christian imagery without making the comic book a Christian book. But I use the imagery because it's the basis for where the idea came from. With these angels and demons and these human hybrids and stuff that, stemmed from Genesis chapter 6. And I use that because most people aren't familiar with the references in the Torah and in the, the Islam books and things like that. They're not familiar with those references, but, if you say Genesis chapter 6, verse 8, people are going to be like, oh, okay, I know what you're talking about. At least in America, anyway.
Yeah. Well, in Quebec, if you were in Quebec, let's say if you're over the age of 40, yes, they'll know precisely what you're saying.
Yeah.
Under the age of 40, there's a good chance they'll know what you're talking about.
Yeah, they'll get the idea. But that's why we we kind of use that imagery to kind of bring you into that world. And thank you. Someone said they like looking forward to issue 10. I am too. Issue 10 is so much fun. I'm taking the characters in places that I've kind of always wanted to take them. The end of issue 9 through issue 12 is what I originally wanted to write. But you know how it is when you're writing a story. You can't write the part you want to write without people caring about the characters. So I had to build up that, why people should care about these characters.
It's more difficult in comics than it is in novels. Because in novels, you can actually write the bit you want to write, and then you go back and you write the other bits that go around it. While in a comic book, you don't have that opportunity unless you do something really crazy, and that generally will not work.
Yeah, it does get very, very complex when you're trying to do that. And especially if you consider that 3 paragraphs of prose equals a 32-page comic book. If you really think about it, it's there's really, not as much content in a 32-page book as there is in, even one chapter of prose. And so it is, because you can, you're showing, those pictures take space, But that all goes back, you try to find your demographic. And I've actually learned that comic books I used to have to ask, do you like comic books?
Mm-hmm.
So going back to demographic and finding the people that you want to be your customer. I started realizing that I wanted some normies, people that weren't comic book fans. And when you are looking for them, these people may have never bought a comic book in their life. They may have bought maybe a manga, but not a comic book.
Mm-hmm.
And if you ask people if they like comic books, even at a comic book convention, you're likely going to get the no answer. No, I don't like that. So I asked, do you like good stories? Because what we're trying to find is people that really want escapism. Do you like good stories that help you escape this reality? Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay. Well, I choose to tell stories through comic books because sequential storytelling is the oldest form of storytelling. It's the cave drawings. It's the hieroglyphics. That's what it was. So this is our modern day way of doing that. The Japanese do it backwards. We do it frontwards. But it's the same thing. It's sequential storytelling. And so that's how I choose to tell this story. And then I tell them what the story basically is. Without going into too much detail, but giving away a few things that maybe some people think, well, maybe you shouldn't say that. Well, sometimes if you don't tell people those little secrets that they shouldn't know, that might be the one thing that gets them interested in the book. By the time they get your book and read it, they're probably going to forget that. Mm-hmm. You really just are trying to get them in that few minutes that you get them. But basically, you got to go find where the people are that you want and start a conversation with them.
I find the question, do you like comics, really weird, because I'm from Quebec. So here, comics is omnipresent for, let's say, kids between 5 to 15. We've got, of course, it's the Franco-Belgians that are all over the place, but everybody's got a comic that they want to read. My oldest son must have gone through the entire library worth of comic books. But even someone who doesn't like to read or doesn't read a whole lot will have something that they will end up gravitating towards. And with the introduction of manga, in Quebec, it wasn't really as frequent as the rest of the French world or French-speaking world. Mm-hmm. It was started around the early 2000s is when the manga craze kind of started here in Quebec. And the sales were already pretty good. And there was not much of a distinction. Of course, some people said that they liked manga more. But if you walked around and there was a comic book you were interested in, you just grabbed it. It's a weird feeling in the U.S. that people have to say, well, do you like comics? And it's not the first time I hear that or the first time I see that in a discussion.
Well, they never really respected the art form here. Mm-hmm. Other countries, Japan primarily, Italy also, very much respect the sequential storytelling art form. We look at it as kind of the slum stuff here. Like if you're a really good artist, you're going to do something that's not comic books. They don't think, we call them comic books or funny books. Very few of them are actually funny or comical, right? They're legit stories.
Nowadays, yeah.
They're legit stories. So, it's just trying to overcome that bias here in the States.
And do you have an idea of potentially ways of overcoming the bias?
Well,
would that be something you'd like to think about?
Randy and I, we've debated over this for a while and thought about it. it's going to be very, very hard to get people to respect the medium when the people that are known for the medium don't respect it. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the executives at Marvel and DC. They don't respect it enough to hire people that love the art form. It's people that they're just doing it. A lot of times it's people's gateway into other things, other more lucrative means of production, making, it could launch into storyboarding for movies, video games, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And until we start seeing a little more care being taken with the properties from those companies, I don't think we're going to overcome that here. Because mostly when people pick up a comic book, they're like, well, this isn't very fun. This isn't very exciting. But we're not seeing that with indie. Obviously, indie comic books are doing really well. If you look across FundMyComic right now, we've got 3 campaigns that are 18,000, 90,000. One of them's 20,000. Rainey is, I think if you refresh that, she's probably over 8,000 by now.
Probably.
Yep, there she is. 164 backers in just a few hours, really. 2 hours, she's raised it. She's going to do really well. We're seeing
more
a
than
lot.
Likely this one here. I haven't backed it yet. I'm probably going to have to look at what my options will be for it. I'll have to see if there's an option to get chapters 1 and 2 and everything in between, because I haven't touched those books at all. I didn't even know those things existed until fairly recently.
I do believe there's a digital catch-up where you can get all the PDFs. I'll have a look. Yeah, I've obviously done the physicals because I do think the international shipping on hers is pretty cheap too. I think her international shipping is set at like $20.
I'll be honest. Through FundMyComics, generally the shipping is a slight bit lower than on Indiegogo.
Well, there's a reason why. Well, it's because we don't charge as much as on a platform fee. Mm-hmm. So they can offset the pricing. So when you're doing a campaign, a couple things you have to consider is what the processing fees are going to take off of the amount that you earn. Mm-hmm. So they take money, and we can't get around it. We take money off of the shipping that's gathered for that item as well. Mm-hmm. So if you're charging $5 for shipping, you're not getting $5 by the time it's all said and done. You're losing the platform fee off of it, and you're losing the transaction fee from Stripe. So that can equal, if it's $5 and it's 5% for one, it equals about 10%. You're losing about 50 cents off of that. So you're really getting $4.50. So now you have to up your shipping so that you actually have the $5 to cover the postage. But the postage now is higher than that. Some post offices, as long as you don't have any ads in the floppy, they will let you ship it media mail. But a lot of them won't now. So you have to ship it at a higher rate. So you can't get the $5 shipping. You have to do the $6 shipping. Plus you're going to have to factor in your packaging for all of those things. The bag, the board, the Gemini mailer. And so you're around $8 to ship that book. Mm-hmm. So if you just charged $8, you're going to lose 80 cents off of there. So now you have to up that. So now what do I make it so that I don't lose? So I do get 8. So now I've got to do $9 because now I'm going to lose 90 cents off of that $9. So I'll actually make $8.10 for shipping. So you see, they've got a lot of things you've got to factor into these things. Mm-hmm. And you've got to think, well, if I'm not fulfilling this for several months, what's the shipping going to be like? If I'm fulfilling around Christmas time, the rates always go up. So I always tell people, like, if you're doing just a flat $5 shipping, you're probably going to be losing money on that in the back end. Now RJ has figured out a way to do all that because he does so much shipping for people. He gets very discounted rates.
Well, that is an advantage of having a publisher or a distributor in the end.
Yeah, well, we would call him like a fulfillment service. Something like that. Having somebody that does it all the time definitely helps out. Well, there's a lot of things to factor in the business side of this stuff.
That's what a lot of people need help with as well. That you've got a lot. Well, not a lot. I mean, it's better known now how crowdfunding works, but there's still a lot of mystique around it, I guess. And people see the $8,000 and they're like, "Wow, that does sound like a lot of money." Well, 8,000's not the biggest campaign I've seen, honestly, but I mean, it does look like a lot of money.
It's a good start.
Yeah, well, for that particular book, it's amazing. In 2 hours, really happy.
So we're doing this thing that if you run a brand new book exclusively on FundMyComic for at least your first 30 days, then we'll lower the platform fee from 3% to 2%. So she's keeping a lot more of her money there. So she's literally paying. So all the fees totaled for this. Stripe charges 30 cents. Well, no, they don't do that anymore. I think they're a straight 4% now. So I think they're a straight 4%. So she's only paying 6% out on this, as opposed to if she was doing one of the pink sites or the blue or the green site. So if she was doing pink or green, she would be at, so like I said, 4. Yeah, she'd be at, no, it'd be about 10%, 9%. She'd be paying on that instead of 6%. And that percentage adds up over time. But that's why you can lower the prices. You're keeping more of your own money. So if she were to run that and she had $8,000 on the other site, she would be making less money than what she's making here on FundMyComic, which was the kind of the whole point of doing this. That was, what made sense is not only kind of have tools that are specific for our genre, the people we want to dance with at the party, basically. So not only having tools for that, but also allowing creators to offset this difficult time. So financially, they can either offset that by making more money themselves or by passing the savings on to their backers, which I think in turn creates a greater influx of backers. So,
well, you're always going to have more people interested if the prices are interesting, especially in this particular economy.
Oh yeah.
But of course, you need to have eyes on the campaigns, which is the other.
Well, Rini does a really good job of generating her own traffic. But I can tell you that the website has had over 1 million hits, and it's nearly in almost 6 months. This morning we've had anywhere between 55 and 100 people on the website at any one point in time since this morning. And that's a Saturday. Be honest, a lot of that traffic, and that's per minute, by the way, that's per minute. And that's a lot of traffic, and that's coming in from, a lot of that it spiked when Rini started doing her YouTube live stream, right? And I think creators, they another thing that we get lost in with the marketing is we think that one site over another is what is actually bringing in your fan base. But what you don't understand is that 70 to 90% of the people that will back you will follow you anywhere. That's why people they have the resources to build their own crowdfunding on their own private site decide to do so, because then they're not paying me 2% or 3%. They're only paying Stripe at that point. But they've also got to think, I'm paying for the hosting, I'm paying for the build and all that stuff. That's what your 2 or 3% goes for, is for me to cover that cost. So everyone's sharing that over, right now, I think 100 campaigns that are live somewhere around there. I can't remember exactly. But from all the live campaigns, that's everyone's sharing the cost on that with FundMyComic. But we're not trying to get rich off of this, so we keep the prices lower just so we can maintain what we're doing, right? And you are bringing your traffic in. They're going to follow you wherever you go. And then the hope is that whichever platform you land on, that the other people that are going there to back books will also will browse and find yours, right? Or that the platform will highlight your campaign so that they will be seen. Pink site, green site, roughly 5% of their audience is there for comic books, and roughly another 5% of their audience is there for games. So maybe 10% of their entire audience and the money they earn is from comics and games. That's it. Most of it is from tech and other things. At FundMyComic, you know that 100% of the audience that visits that website is the kind of girl you want to dance with at the party. They all are. They're all into the same thing you're into. So you have a better shot of being seen, even though our traffic is probably just a sliver of what those other sites are getting because they've been around for so long and they're known, right? But still, 100% of our audience is there to back, right? And if you think that maybe 10% of the ones that find your campaign by accident convert, so it's roughly 10 to 17% that do that. And so let's just call it 20 to be fair, right? Like just to be a little generous. So 10 to 20%. Let's say you've got 10 people that find your campaign. You're going to get 10 to 20% to convert. Well, we are finding that we're having more conversion on FundMyComic than what we expected. We're higher in like the 30 to 40%. So out of every 10 visitors, we're getting 3 to 4 people that are actually backing another campaign besides the one they came there for, which is really cool. You know, it's not something that we expected. We expected to be on par with what was normally the standard, but we're higher than that. And really, to be honest, as everybody brings their cup of water to the bucket and pours it in, brings their audience, it increases the tide that we're riding here. And so we're seeing a lot of benefit from having people in. And that's why we run the different promotions that we do, because we want to encourage people to bring their 70 to 90% that they would normally bring to a campaign, bring it to FundMyComic first and keep more of your own money. You know, we're willing to take less money because we believe that once you've used the site, you're going to want to use it more. That once the backers have used the site, they're going to want to use it more. And that if everybody's bringing their audience in, then it's going to create a greater cross traffic. And like I've already said, we're seeing double what the other sites are seeing as a conversion rate from just general traffic that finds their way to the site.
Well, I think a lot of it, like you were saying, the people coming to FundMyComics want to fund comics, want to back comics. So that's a big thing overall.
Makes a huge difference.
I mean, on IGG or Kickstarter, you're often just going to get, all the tech stuff, like you said, is very common. Same with music. Fairly big on Kickstarter. So there's those people. They always have the opportunity. Some of them might be interested in comics as well, but you don't know.
Yeah, you don't really know exactly. And I'm not saying that Kickstarter and Indiegogo aren't good platforms. They are good platforms. I've used them. But I feel that the audience deserves a little bit better. I feel that what we do kind of deserves its own focus for marketing. I love comic books. This is a very how do I want to put it? We are the we're very boutique. That's the word I'm looking for. We're very boutique. We're hands-on. If you call the number, my phone rings. I answer it, and I answer your questions. We had somebody call yesterday from Canada having a question about something, and I was able to answer their question for them. You're going to get somebody that, if you're running a campaign, you're going to get somebody that loves comic books and wants you to have everything that you need to be successful. The other place, when it's 10% of their audience, 5% of their audience, they don't really care as much about the stuff that doesn't make as much money. They care about the stuff that makes a lot of money. And if you're a part of that 5%, that pulls in a couple of $1,000s max for your campaign because you've got a smaller audience. You are working full time. This is currently hobby levels, but you're trying to get your name out there, get your art out there. Then the support you're going to get is almost nil. But you're not going to get that with us because we really want you to succeed. That's the whole point of this, is for all of us to do well and enjoy making comics. And I really wanted to lower the price of entry for comic books. It's already pretty high as far as time and money goes. But I really would like to lower that price of entry for creators as far as gaining the knowledge, the wisdom they need, the experience they need, and the funds, obviously, because you got to pay for this. Look, people hire me to do art all the time. I'm not cheap. I'm cheaper than some, but I'm not cheap. I know that.
Well, the problem with cheap is often you get what you pay for.
You do. You get, if you buy cheap, you get cheap. Yeah.
I was having a discussion this morning on X-Twitter, whatever we decide to call it this week, about retail bundles. Here we have some retail bundles. They haven't had any backers, at least not on FundMyComics, for Bronze Star here. I'm a bit, I'm not going to say concerned, but a bit confused as to why more campaigns don't offer something like that. Because
they should, but not all independent creators have had a positive experience with the retailer. Not all retailers have had a positive experience with people who crowdfund. So sometimes it can be very difficult.
Well, I do know of at least one store who they basically got canceled when they called out someone who had a retailer package and never shipped their book. So I can understand why some of them would have issues.
Yeah, it's a hard time for a retail store to take a chance on a crowdfunding campaign. Number one, they don't know how well it's going to sell, and they don't know if they're really going to get the book. So they're going to need a relationship with the creator on that. When you're backing Mike Barron and, you know that Chris Braley's behind this, and they've got a history of fulfillment and being on time or early, you're not going to worry about it. But most retailers aren't coming to crowdfunding, which is where Iron Age distribution comes in. If you have a successfully crowdfunded book on a campaign, then you're no longer taking a chance on something. You're going to take advantage of something. And so the idea is that we'll take successfully funded books, format them in a 32-page floppy, which if you have a 96-page graphic novel, you can break that up into 3 floppies. And so you've got 3 so you'll do 32-page floppies. And if your story is shorter than that, we can help you fill it with advertisements and things like that, and adverts, short stories and things like that, fill it in. But you get 32 pages, then you get your cover files. And all of those are going to be, to start with, we're moving in stages. So the first thing that we're going to offer is people submitting 32-page floppies. We have the files before we list your items, your properties. We have to verify with the printer that the files are good. because what will happen is those go into a shared folder with our printer. Then we list the items. We list the books under publisher. So each, now we may have to do subcategories because some publishers have a whole lot. Like Arrow has a bunch of different properties. So Arrow's going to have subcategories. So there's going to be one tab just for hybrids. So you can go in and buy bundles of those books. And we're going to sell them in bundles of 5. So minimum of 5. But you can add up to 5 bundles of each one. So, but we're not doing special covers. We're not doing foils. We're not doing variants. It's one cover, barcode on the front, industry standard, priced at $6. That's the retail price. We sell the books at $3 to the retailer. That way they are making profit. So it's the same discount. Actually, maybe a little bit better than some of the discount they're getting from Diamond or one of the others. But it's a book that has already sold. They know that there's an audience. Plus,
the book already exists.
It already exists.
So.
It's already done. It's been fulfilled. It's ready to go. Like they know it's ready to go. That as soon as they order it there, it's going to be. And then what happens is when they place their order, that order, a copy of it goes directly to our printer immediately. And the printer then prints that order and ships directly to the retailer. Turnaround time is 2 weeks, usually max 2 weeks.
Which is reasonable.
Which is reasonable, right? And so that was the plan. There's no cost to the creator on this. Because the biggest part about getting distribution through any of these through these other companies is in order to offer the discount, you have to buy huge bulk. So you have a huge price for entry on that one. The cost of entry to be distributed through Diamond is ridiculous because you have to print 1,500 books in order to be able to offer the discount that's required, because you have to sell it at a 60% discount to Diamond. Right?
Okay.
So in order to make any money at all, you have to be able to sell these books for nothing.
$1.50?
Probably $1.50. Yeah, right? And so it gets very complicated to make money that way. We didn't want to do it that way. So this way, with every book that sells, the publisher gets 25 cents. We get roughly a little bit more than that, but we have to pay for the site. We have to pay for a lot of the fees. We're taking care of all the fees.
Yeah.
All the creator has to do is submit their files once they've been approved. We work to sell it to the retailer. Once we have retailers that are buying our books, and by our, I mean collectively our books, through Iron Age distribution, then we ask the publishers to promote those comic book stores to send their fans that may have missed it, or even if they didn't miss it and they still got it, go grab the retail version to show that retail store some love. It's only $6. Visit your local store, give them $6, let them know how much you love comic books, and see what else is on the shelf and buy something.
Are you only going to target comic shops, or are you also looking to put those in newsstands?
We're starting with comic shops, and we are also looking at newsstands.
Okay.
But one of the other things that we're going to do is we're going to create a spinner rack program. So let's say, for instance, you're out there and you want to work in comics, but you're not a writer and you're not an artist, but darn it, I just want to help. I want to do something. I want to be a part of this game somehow, right? So we're going to offer a spinner rack program, which we're still working on putting that together, where you, for one cost, you get a spinner rack from us and we stock it full of books. And you take that spinner rack and you put it anywhere you want. In any store that you've set up a relationship with. But you become our retailer. You are our retailer. So if you've got a local drugstore and they say, hey, I've got a spinner rack of comics I'd like to set in, they say, I would love, yeah, let's do it. You work with us. We send you the spinner rack. We send you the books. You stock it. When the books sell, you come back to us and you order just like you would if you're a retailer to stock your spinner rack. So we're going to literally put people to work and give people a supplementary income, because then they're making $3 off every book they sell.
Honestly, I feel that this is a great thing. I can see many, local game shops, for D&D and Magic and all that stuff, having some of those spinner racks in them at some point in the future. Because there is a cross section of people, a larger cross section of people who like comics, who like those kinds of games as well. I can speak for myself in that case, actually, but
yeah, I mean, if you like D&D, you're gonna love Rainey's book, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fantasy. It's great. It's very
same
well
with
written.
hybrids. Honestly, I mean, you did do an RPG version of it.
We do have an RPG,
seen it, and that sounds interesting, but I don't have time to play a whole lot of games recently.
Right? Yeah.
That does sound interesting. So.
Yeah. So we're trying. We're doing things, and these are not new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
This is just taking current ideas that are out there and things that are being used and applying it to comics. This is a better version of the Young Living cult. I call it a cult. The essential oils. You buy your package and then you go sell it. This is your Mary Kay. This is just a better, more affordable thing, and you're going to be able to sell comics. So that's the next thing that we're going to work into. And then the third thing we're going to work into is actually warehousing books to ship out, so we can introduce collectibles, we can introduce graphic novels and prose. So we're eventually going to work into all those things. Mm-hmm. And who knows where that's going to go. Honestly, at some point, I mean, the big brain behind the distribution side of things is my partner, Phil.
All right.
I'm an idea guy. I come with the ideas. I find the audience. I'm just the guy that's kind of spearheaded this whole thing. But I find people that are brilliant, and I surround myself with them. You're only as strong. When you're a leader, you're only as strong as the team you have around you. And so I've partnered with Phil Avelli, who has worked for the distribution side in music for large companies you would have heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has experience with that. And so his whole existence is going to be, let's make this a full-time job. Like that's the goal. Like, let's sell books and make it happen. He's chomping at the bit. He's actually pushing me to get my side of things done on things. And so we are so close. Our goal, like he and I, our goal for ourselves is to have our first bundle of books shipped to a retailer by Christmas.
That might be a bit ambitious.
It might be, but we have a whole catalog of Arrow books that we have to put up there.
There is that. You do have that. I
have an
backlog.
entire catalog of Arrow books that are going up there. And so we can distribute those almost immediately. And we've tested this. The printer has actually done our retail bundles that we did for Rift Riders. Mm-hmm. So all of our retail orders we sent to him, and he shipped them blind and did the fulfillment for us to the retailers. And the book showed up, and it was easy. It was the easiest part of fulfillment for that campaign. I loved it.
If fulfillment works, at least once in a while for crowdfunding, it's always fun, because that's one of the biggest issue almost everybody has with
fulfillment. Sucks.
Fulfillment.
I hate fulfillment. I'm good at it.
I would understand that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked shipping and distribution and stuff myself, but not at somewhat as a manager. But my part-time job for a while was working in the shipping for Guitar Center, so I would ship guitars all over the country. And
well, shipping guitars can't be easy.
No, that's a pain in the ass. I hated it. I hated it. Comic books are way easier to ship. But I still,
the
it's
Gemini mailer made that easy.
It did. It really did. But it's not my favorite thing to do. It's not my, I'm good at it. My kids are getting real good at it. I pay them to do it.
Well,
so they're the ones that do my fulfillment. Yeah. And so I say, hey, I need this. And I give them the stuff. And then I print off the labels. And then we stick them on there and ship them out. My local post office is amazing. They let me pull up right to the back door and just drop them off on the dock. And they take them and get them out. I just So I my goal is I don't mind working hard, but I prefer to work smart. And so I try to streamline and make as many things easy as possible. Mm-hmm. And one of those things is, how do we get out to more people? How do we make more money? As creators. How
does everyone make more money? I
exactly.
think is part of your your idea here.
Exactly. That's why we do FundMyComic the way we do it. Mm-hmm. It's also why we do Iron Age distribution. Mm-hmm. Is to put more money in everyone's pocket, because there's money out there to be made. That's where we get in this weird competition where we're putting each other down, and that's where that whole they did it with the CG folks. They labeled them different things so no one would want to work with them. And now they're trying to do that with Iron Age. They're like trying to call it a cult or something.
Yes, I've seen that starting yesterday, basically.
Yeah, they're trying to label it as something negative so people stay away from it. And the reason why is because those people that see it are taking their dollars there. Whenever you take wealth and redistribute that wealth somewhere else, you're going to make an enemy. You're going to make an enemy. And that's all that's happening. And we've got people that don't like FundMyComic because we're taking wealth and redistributing it. We're putting more of the money back into the creator's hands. We're saying, screw all that other noise, and we're going to give the money to the people that deserve it, the people that made the product, right? Mm-hmm. People are going to be upset with Iron Age distribution as well. We understand that's all part of the game. Until you become the big boy on the block, and then you can demand your own terms of the game.
I mean, the last people who had their own terms of the game were Disney, mm-hmm. and they completely faltered recently.
Yep.
So that doesn't mean that if you are able to give the terms for a little while,
you're always going to. Yeah, you've got to. I mean, it's a business. You've got to think, mm-hmm. and ultimately, the customer is king. Whoever's buying the product you're making, they're the ones that's going to determine if you've done a good job or not. Not your peers. Not your peers. I can have my peers review me all day long. What matters is the people that are giving me money. How many people are willing to come back time and time again in this marriage that we call the creator-fan relationship? It's why you go to the place to find the girl that you want to dance with, and you talk to those people, you build a relationship, and you don't even ask them to buy your book to start with. The first thing you do is ask them, will you subscribe to my mailing list? Will you sub to my YouTube channel? Will you come and talk to me and hear me talk more? Can we build more of a relationship? Let me see you in the chats. Let you see me. That's why I typically have my camera on. The only reason I didn't is I had people walking in and around behind me, so I can turn my camera back on. But and I need to adjust it a little bit. We had a catastrophic failure. We had a catastrophic failure up here earlier. I tripped and bumped into it and messed everything up. But you have to build that trust with people. And then once we've talked a little bit, then I'll ask you, well, you can go to my website and download the first book for free. Mm-hmm. And I haven't been doing the big having people do reviews. I think you're one of the first people I've given my books to have a review done.
Well, that's part of what I do, the whole review process. But
yeah, I know there's a few people that do that, and I didn't typically do that, but I'm like, well, some of these people out there actually have people that listen to their opinion, and so I would like to get their opinion on it. And then even from their opinion, maybe I can grow. I mean, there's not a lot I can do now with, 9 books being done, but I can improve book 10, 11, 12, and any other property that I produce from this point forward.
Oh no, there's always improvement to be had.
We're always growing. If you're not growing, you're dying. And yeah, but it's a lot of fun to get out there and to build those relationships and make those friendships. I don't like to do things based on a hashtag or a movement. I use Iron Age as an opportunity to market to people that are interested in this new renaissance of comics that's emerging from independent and non-corporate entities like Arrow Comics and people that used to be in it like Kelsey Shannon. That's where you use that. I don't use it as a political litmus test. I honestly don't care who you vote for. I understand that doesn't really have a huge impact long term in relationships. It can have a long term effect on our country in certain, in our countries in certain circumstances. I think you're seeing that in Canada. We're certainly seeing that here in the U.S. Because a pattern of voting can get you into a bad situation. But I think yelling about the politicians and about the party lines isn't going to help anything. I think honest conversations do. And if you think about the Renaissance of anything, like think of the Harlem Renaissance that took place here in America, where African American music and art started to emerge, and it introduced a new worldview to people that hadn't seen that before. And it helped them understand what life was like in Harlem, what life was like for people of different colors, different sexes. That's what a Renaissance is. It allows the free exchange of ideas through creativity so that people can see other points of view and other worldviews and maybe have a better understanding of who their neighbor is. What we're seeing a lot with the censorship is, if you don't agree with me politically, you can't be here. Well, that's not a good point to take. It's, why do you disagree with me politically? Let me see where you're coming from. Maybe we won't agree at the end, but maybe we will find some things that we do connect over. We don't do that anymore. So maybe that was the other part of reason why FundMyComic needed to be. Is so that we can get away from this asinine behavior that, I don't like you, and I don't like the way you voted, I don't like something that you said, so I'm going to get you canceled. We don't practice cancel culture here. This is a Renaissance culture that we are trying to build here.
I do find it a bit confusing. I mean, I've always loved comic, but I've been in it now for maybe about a year, more than anything else. And I find it really weird, all the drama that we see on everywhere, let's face it, around those comic creators. And like you said, there's a lot of it that's political, but you also have ankle biting over
we call
very
that crabs
simple things.
We call that crabs in the bucket.
Yeah. And a lot of people are losing money from doing that.
Yeah. Well, you know how I said that the whenever you redistribute wealth, you're going to make enemies. When you become successful, you're going to get haters. It doesn't matter if you've ever met them or not. The fact that people are knowing who you are and that people are sending you their money for whatever reason it might be, it just pisses some people off. They just get upset. And it's because, I don't know if they're lazy, if they're not innovative. And those might be factors, but I think the primary factor is they're scared. They're scared to take a shot and take a chance. And if you're not scared to do it and you wind up doing it and some success, you're going to find people that are going to be mad at you. And you see this a lot. It's the crabs that are trying to get out of the bucket. And they think the only way that they can elevate out of that bucket is if they grab the other crab and pull them down below them to crawl on top of them. And you see a lot of that behavior in independent comics. And what you have to do is you have to be intentional about elevating yourself above that. And you can elevate yourself by simply using yourself as the standard. The only person you need to be better than is yourself yesterday. I don't need to be better than you or the other person that's out there on YouTube or this other creator or Kelsey Shannon, or I don't need to be better than any of these people. I just need to be better than me yesterday. And if I can do that, I will get better. And I will get better at promoting my work and selling my work. I'll get better at engaging with fans. I'll get better at producing a high quality product that they want to engage with. That's how you elevate yourself out of it. And people in the bucket get really pissy when you find a way out of it. They don't like it.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to have to end this here, and that was a great comment to end it with, I believe.
I think so.
Just we're not really that much over the time I normally put down for these, but it's I do have, unfortunately, family obligations, as I think everybody does.
Oh yeah.
So I thank you very much for coming in. Every time I do one of those interviews, I end up smiling through the whole thing. So I'm always super happy to meet with creators and people that have not only been creating, but have been wanting to create better places for everyone, I think. Mm-hmm. And I thank you very much for coming.
Hey, it was my absolute pleasure. Thank you for the invite. I always love talking about the business side of things, the industry things. Mm-hmm. You don't get a lot of that. You get most of these YouTube shows these days. They're focused on whatever the hot topic of the of the week is, and I just don't care to engage in that stuff. It's not productive.
Exactly. So as usual, I'm going to tell everybody to keep on reading comics, keep on enjoying them, and I will keep analyzing them and reviewing them. And I'll see everybody later. Bye-bye.
Bye.